Hello again. Welcome back inside the Tier 4 studio in Morgantown, West Virginia. For the Charleston Daily Mail, I am Mike Casazza. Today is Tuesday, April 2nd, and we are just back from our first post-spring break football practice at West Virginia. And it's always an interesting day for someone like me, curious, suspicious, some might say nosy, because a lot can happen during that time away from football. Sometimes guys will spend too much time in the buffet and not enough time in the weight room. And they'll lose that conditioning, that speed, that stamina that they had built in the off-season conditioning and then sustained during the first 2 weeks of spring football. Natural thing, but the good news is I didn't really see anything like that out there today. Pretty spirited, even on a cold day. Guys were excited, had good energy, and it really livened up toward the end. We'll talk about that in a couple of minutes. Something else, you always keep an inventory of personnel, because when guys do go home for that break, they're around friends and family and old high school teammates who are now in college. Sometimes they're around their high school coaches. And if they've been in college for 1 or 2 or 3 years, they'll have a good understanding of what the future might look like at that point. And if that future too closely resembles their past and they weren't that happy with their past and their playing time, some of them might just decide to cut it right there and not continue with football at the school during the rest of the spring. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just that's when they choose to break it and they go along. Didn't notice anything like that. Only one person that I did notice was gone. I don't mean to tease you. I'm not going to say his name because it could be an explanation. In fact, I hear there is. But for West Virginia to have solid conditioning, built up and sustained, the personnel all there, really no major defections that we know of, that's good news because they're trying to build something here as they go forward. Started with some shaky moments early in practice, special teams once again, and Josh Lambert finally had some mortal moments, let's say. He'd been really good the first few times we had seen him, hadn't missed anything. Finally knocked one off the upright. It did go in though, and then had one blocked, was victimized by a bad snap, and then pushed one wide right. Don't want to put all that on him. There were some things that were out of his control, and it was a little bit windy. But also, when you're away for a while and you don't have your snapper and your holder there in front of you to go over the same things day after day after day, that timing is important. If it's not there, you can have moments like that. I moved to the defensive line today. I hadn't really gotten a chance to see them, and coaches and teammates had told me that I should because there's some nice things happening over there. And I think what they mean by that is, while there aren't a lot of players, and that'll change for sure over the summer when some of the junior college and high school recruits arrive, they have some nice big bodies over there that are versatile and can move around. You could see some guys playing end and tackle or tackle and on the inside. Shaq Rowell and Christian Brown, they may be inside guys, but you can move around. Eric Kinsey and Kyle Rose and Will Clark. And there's some veteran guys now. It was a totally different story a year ago. And you can really see that because when they go through drills, I don't want to say they're bored. They look very confident and businesslike. They know what they're doing. You don't hear Eric Slaughter, the defensive line coach, repeat too many things or make them re-rep because they know how to do it and they knock it out and they go along to the next one. And I kind of just got the sense from watching them drill, again, only for a few minutes, that they really prefer the physical stuff, not the technical stuff. That's not to say their fundamentals aren't good or that they kind of sleep on that part of practice, but I think that based on their experience and where some of them, like Kyle Rose, left off last season, they really want to get back to football, which is probably why those guys dominated the parts of the Oklahoma drill that we saw today. A lot of those players, whether it was Kinsey or Rose or Clark or even Noble Nwachukwu, I think I got that right, they had good moments in there. They got off blocks, they flattened guys, and it was kind of fun to watch. Now, this is not to say that the offensive line didn't have good plays and they were completely run over. In fact, Curtis Fight, Nick Candler looked really nice in some of their drills on back-to-back trips for them and got guys turned around, pushed outside, gave their running back room to get through. Nice stuff there. Marquise Lucas, the guy who's trying to get a spot at guard, he pancaked a player and really got everybody awake. But everything changed on the right side where the receivers go against the defensive backs. And Akil Shorts and Kevin White, the junior college and the high school players, early enrollees, they looked like they were pretty well off of block, and they understood how to use their bodies, how to use leverage, and knock some guys around. But Connor Arley and Brandon Napoleon, who are two really nice kids, they got in a bit of a fisticuff with one another there where it looked like they were just tired of maybe pushing and pulling. The play went all the way to the end of the whistle, and they kind of backed off, and they looked at each other, and then they were playing the feud. They were going after each other, and the best part was while the guys in the white come out and try to help Arley and the guys in the blue come over and they try to help Napoleon, the assistant coaches stand there and go, just as long as it doesn't get too out of hand. And eventually they separate it and you go back to business and doing the drill because you're there for practice. You don't want to waste time. But that really got everybody going, and you saw guys like Dustin Arndt and Kyle Rose level guys immediately after that. There was an urgency that hadn't been there earlier in practice, And when Arlia and Napoleon went back at it again, they went after each other really good and almost picked it up where they had left off before, decided not to. But you had some really good performances and some good combat in the drills that kind of followed that one little dust up there, to the point that Mark Lewinsky and Will Clark decided they were going to punch each other in the helmet for a while after they had a really physical rep against each other. And I will never understand this, because those helmets are hard, man. They're supposed to protect you. And your hands and your knuckles, those are valuable if you're offensive lineman and defensive lineman. You don't want to wear a cast. You don't want them looking like S's or crooked numbers. And yet they're going to punch each other in the head with these things. And it was so funny because, you know, these are both big, strong guys, and they're just wrapping each other in the head. And I don't understand it, but that was wrapped up pretty quickly by the coaches. I think 1 was enough. 2 was a bit excessive. But we left shortly after that, and you can kind of tell that everybody was awake again in practice. And I'm not sure the intent was to start punching each other in the face mask just so they could have a good practice. But you can kind of tell that whatever period of inactivity, that was no longer an issue, and these guys were ready to go and get back to football.